Yeah, I know. I've made 3 videos on Returnal already, and now I'm making one on Nex Machina. Listen, I promise I don't only play Housemarque games, okay? It's just that game kind of broke a recent video game dry spell, and it made me want to go back and play some of Housemarque's more classic arcade-style games, so that's why I'm here. While I'm at it, if you have played this game, or you've been thinking about playing Returnal, or just want a video dissecting Returnal in general, go check out the card up here for my recent Returnal analysis video. It's definitely the video I'm most proud of so far, but it's having a tough time views-wise, so checking that out is super appreciated. But anyways, let's get away from that and run the intro and hunker down on talking about Nex Machina. I would say I'm someone who's pretty up to date with new games and the general goings on of the gaming space. I don't stumble upon and play literally every indie in existence, but I have my ear to the ground usually. Which is why I was so surprised when I was looking at Returnal content pre-launch and saw somebody mentioning Nex Machina, because it looked really cool, and I actually didn't realize that Housemarque had made anything since Resogun. And as it turned out, they actually made quite a few things since then. Housemarque famously declared that arcade games were dead a few years back, and that was because their sales weren't really matching their quality. They were making really well-reviewed games, and no one was buying them. And them sounding so defeated on the genre kind of makes sense, because I bet there are thousands if not millions of people like me who have never even realized that the Resogun developers had anything else out recently, because unless you actively follow arcade games, these titles flew right by your head. And it's a real shame, because even though Housemarque received vindication through Returnal, their backlog is still criminally undervalued from the small amount that I've now seen and played in the past couple of weeks. The game that spoke to me the most personally was Nex Machina, because it's as simple and straightforward an experience as you can ask for, but it's designed brilliantly. The whole game is based on making everything feel chaotic and crazy, but still coherent, and just from the visuals I feel like you can pick that up. Blocks and enemies crumble into this cubic rubble. Your weapon can send bullets very wide and long with just a couple of upgrades. There's constant projectiles, crawling enemies, lasers, or charging foes on screen at once in a very cramped space, and the end of a level feels like an army of unicorns started violently puking everywhere. If you unfocus just a little bit, the only thing crossing your mind is, what in the is happening? Is this what Kanye was talking about? But somehow as you're playing, it becomes pretty easy to keep track of yourself and also make sense of the blacklit hotel room with a neon filter that is this game, and I'd say the gameplay is pretty similar in that regard. Nex Machina hits the ground running, man, and it's your job to keep up with it, and to my surprise, it wasn't actually too tough to do that. I played through the first time on experience difficulty just because I don't really play many arcade games, so I wanted to make a quick run and see what it was about, and then decide what difficulty I'd actually try to finish the game on, and then I got through it on my first try, which isn't super impressive since it gives you 99 lives, so me saying that is not just me trying to flex on you guys, it's more just to let you know that at a pretty standard difficulty, this game is definitely manageable. Even though it wasn't the toughest, barring a couple of later bosses, the gameplay loop was really engaging despite it only involving 2 buttons and 2 sticks. One to move, one to shoot/aim, one to dash, and one to use whatever special you got in your hand. For a game to be fun with so few button inputs, it's gotta have you on your toes at all times, and Nex Machina does just that. Enemies are constantly chasing you down. It's not exactly a bullet hell game, because for the most part, it's not really projectiles that are being shot at you. There are some enemies like that, but mainly it's just dudes being hot on your tail, and you need to move and duck and weave and dash to give yourself space to keep attacking them. Having that type of gameplay means you're less reliant on patterns and just shuffling a little bit to the left and then shuffling a little bit to the right, and you're instead forced to stay mobile the whole time. You still need to find crevices that you can duck into to avoid being hit, but you have to do that while moving up and down the arena, and that really adds the feeling of just barely scraping by. And this isn't an indictment of bullet hell games, by the way. It's just that for me, I personally prefer full movement around the screen over being able to just stand in one area and sway back and forth. It's a personal thing. As an arcade game, it also gives you limited lives to deal with. You can pick up extras, but you can only have 5 at any one time, so make 5 mistakes in one of these arenas or go through a few without finding any extras and you're done for. Now, on experience difficulty, this is pretty forgiving. The game gives you 99 continues, which are functionally comparable to when people used to put like an extra quarter or whatever to continue their game in an arcade machine. Technically you lost, but if you give me more money, you can keep playing. Now, Nex Machina doesn't entirely treat it like that. First of all, you don't give it any extra money to do this, but also even on its hardest difficulty, you receive a few continues, so it's not like a game over type of deal, and you're pseudo cheating, I guess, for using your continues. Instead, the designation between losing a normal life and using a continue is just in the punishment. On experience difficulty, for example, you drop one of your upgrades when you lose one of those lives, and you drop all of your upgrades when you use a continue. Now, you can just grab them right after, so it's not a crazy change for this difficulty at least, but it does make a difference when you're in a later level, you use a continue, you and you're down to a single dash and a single stream of bullets and no shield, and then you have to go get all your stuff, otherwise if you die you're gonna lose it all, versus when you have a bunch of bullets flying everywhere and a triple dash, you can go grab like weapon range or something pretty easily. I should touch on how that continue is much more severe in higher difficulties, but first I need to actually explain what the upgrades actually are. I've mentioned most of them already, but the 5 that you have are dash explosion, weapon spread, weapon range, triple dash, and shield. And you pick these up randomly through levels. There's no set order that you get them all, although I do think you can only get shield after you get everything else. Dash explosion and weapon range are obviously pretty straightforward, and they're also the ones that are probably the least important to the game. They're nice to have, but I wouldn't say they're essential to any part of the gameplay loop. Weapon spread and triple dash though, those are crazy important, especially later on, and you feel really naked without them. Your attack cone is affected so drastically with weapon spread that without it you're way more likely to get overwhelmed or to have too low DPS against a boss, and then the fight just really stretches out. And considering just how full the screen can get with enemies or projectiles, without being able to dash back to back to back, you're almost definitely going to get yourself cornered unless you're thinking 8 moves ahead. And then finally, shield is really helpful because it stops you from losing a life if you get hit. It breaks when it does that, but since the game is technically a one-hit kill, that extra tank damage is key. I really like this overall system for the upgrades in this game because having a handful of these can make you feel literally overpowered, whereas losing them makes you feel crippled. And I think it really gives you an incentive, even with all your continues, to try and avoid hits as much as possible, because trying to grab your weapon spread late in the level that you dropped far away from spawn can be an absolute nightmare. And you definitely feel pressure despite having all of these cushions, because all of a sudden if you die again, that weapon spread is gone for good and a different upgrade drops, and now you're gonna have to really dial your skills up to 11 to get out of this tough area, and just really hope to find another weapon spread soon. It's also impressive that the game continues testing your skill even when you have all of those upgrades. Even though I felt kinda OP at times, I was still in constant danger, and I definitely felt that. I mentioned this really quickly just now, but this all becomes way more intense on veteran difficulty. When you use a continue in this difficulty, you don't get all of your goodies back, and since the game gets tougher overall, almost every single one of my veteran runs had me going through the first 3 world with 0 continues, accidentally screwing up stupidly twice at this boss, and then using my first continue and not being able to get past that point because now I'm trying to fight this dude after fighting a bunch of smaller enemies with a single dash and a single bullet stream, and I'm just not good enough for that. Veteran is a much more fun playthrough than experienced for sure, and it's really where the game and its tough rules and intelligent enemy spawning start to shine, but I will say that maybe the only thing I don't like in this game is just how drastic the difficulty change is from experienced to veteran. Enemies fire more stuff, there are way more enemies crammed in general, you have more severe punishments for death, and you only have 10 lives. I literally picked up the game for the first time and immediately beat experienced with 15 continues. I could probably do it the next time in like 5, and yet I still haven't even been close to beating veteran yet after a good 10 runs, because the second that I use my first continue over here, I lose 3, 4, 5, and then I quit because I'm like, okay, this is pointless. I definitely feel like there should have been a difficulty in between these two to ease that curve a little bit. Even the fact that you go from 99 lives to 10 is kind of crazy, considering the difference between the next two is 10 to 5. Just to clarify, I'm not saying veteran's too hard, I'm just bad at the game, and I think that it's a very good difficulty, but it would have been nice to have another difficulty in between these to just help me prepare a bit better for veteran, because these two difficulties just feel like 2 different games almost. I'm more just criticizing the weird spike and lack of like a smooth curve than anything. But hey, it doesn't really take away from my enjoyment. It's just like one small thing that I hate, that I'm hitting that roadblock, but I mean, I'll get past it eventually. I know I didn't touch on the special attacks much, and that's mainly just because while they're definitely important to the loop, it's really just a way to deal bonus damage for the most part. Obviously there are ways that you can use them well or poorly, and you can also choose one that's really good as like a last resort of defense, but there's not a whole lot to say on them other than, yeah, it's nice to be able to hit hard momentarily and have a few options on how you do so you can kind of build your own personal playstyle. But the thing is, this video isn't really a review, it's more me just trying to shine a light on this game, and I think its systems are super simple, very easy to pick up. You have some little hidden extras throughout to satisfy the satiation of a lot of people that have that fiend for that kind of stuff, but overall it's just a super well designed, high octane action game, and I wanted to talk about it and why I think it's a worthwhile experience. If you guys have been looking for a kind of break game, like the type of game that you play in between maybe a couple of larger sessions, or to wind down at night, or just to play once or twice during a week on a busy schedule, I think this one's perfect. It doesn't have a crazy time commitment, you can just play level by level if you want as well, if that's your thing, so it can definitely be played in really short sessions, and it's just fun as hell while you're playing it, plain and simple. I really hope that games like this have a resurgence soon in terms of like how much audiences actually want them and how much it's in demand. I know I said in my Returnal video that game is like the new arcade, it's the modernized, properly consoleized version of arcade, but I also do hope that these more simple retro classic titles come back in demand, because not everything has to be a huge 30-hour expedition to be fun. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this little recommendation mini analysis video. I have videos on other indies and smaller games on the channel, as well as discussion videos and analysis on all types of games, not just indies. So leave a sub, check out the rest of the channel, and I'll see you guys later.